Greetings to everyone present here. I welcome you all to this webinar on sustainable development and green energy with Dr. Meena Jain, conducted by Digi Saksham. Many of you are new here, so let me give you a brief introduction about what we do here at Digi Saksham. Digi Saksham is an initiative of SIMS Welfare Foundation, which provide access to learning resources and conduct digital scaling awareness derives, providing the next generation of learners the skills they need to thrive in a digital economy. Talking about today's webinar, the event will cover the basics of the topic sustainable development and environment. Dr. Meena Jain will also brief us about green building and its evolution. It is a one-stop event to gain knowledge, awareness, and techniques to integrate to attain sustainable development. Dr. Meena Jain is an assistant professor at the Department of Resource Management and Design Application in Delhi University. She is an expert in program evolution, environmental awareness, and academic writing, and she is a strong academic and professional. Ma'am Doctor research was titled Assessment of Government Initiatives in Iron of Grid Solar Application for Commercial Establishments in Selected States of India. A stakeholder's perspective, which awarded gold medal by Delhi University, as well prestigious award Anupa Sahi Sidhu Gold Medal for Excellence in Doctor work in the year 2017. She, without a doubt, is probably the best person to educate you on the topic of sustainable development. Now I would request Meena ma'am to take over from here.
All right. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon once again. Uh, as Amitesh very rightly said, that we are going to be discussing about sustainable development and green energy. So, first of all, let me just throw some light on what is development, and I think I would request everyone to make this session very interactive. I do not want it to be a one way lecture kind of a thing. So if I'm asking something and you want to add on to that, just unmute yourself and go ahead. All right. So what are your thoughts on development? Anyone?
Hello, ma'am.
Right.
Development means it is a gradual progress in something.
Okay. Yes. Very rightly said. And definitely, when we talk of development, yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Hi.
So, ma'am, I think development means the upgradation of something or some systems, ma'am.
All right, absolutely. So when we are talking about development, it's nothing but upgradation of something. So if we are at a position X and if we are taking it to a position Y, that is development. All right. So very
Um,
rightly said. Yes.
for me, it's changes over time.
Changes with time. Very important. Absolutely. So when we are changing with time, that is also development. So development has no, one definition that fits everything, but development is when we are improving. So when we are improving in our society, when we are improving in our economic conditions, that is nothing but development. Now, you might wonder whether development is quantitative or qualitative. So I would say that development is both quantitative and qualitative. So suppose I'll just give you a very brief example here. So, if we are increasing the number of schools, that's a quantitative approach that we are following, right? So if we are, from 100 schools, we have reached to 1000 schools. That's a quantitative development that we are talking about. At the same time, we also need to take care of the qualitative aspects. Are we also improving the quality of education? If yes, then that comes under qualitative improvement. So development is related to both quantitative as well as qualitative improvement. And so development is a holistic growth of human and natural environment. And when I say holistic, it means it takes care of everything. It takes care of the society, it takes care of your environment. So it's a holistic growth of human and growth is a part of development. So when we say what is growth, is it synonymous with development? I would say no. Growth is actually a part of development. Now coming on to growth versus development. So, we have had this debate going on for so long, whether growth is synonymous to development or growth is different or growth is bigger than development. So I would say that growth is actually a part of development. So when we are increasing in size and number, that is basically termed as growth, whereas when we are also improving in terms of the qualitative conditions, that is basically termed as development. So growth has a more quantitative approach, whereas development has a more qualitative approach. Now coming on to some key, facts which are related to development. So, we say that the building sector, which is there around the world, it consumes about 30% of the total world's energy. And if we continue to release the greenhouse gas emissions from the burning of fossil fuels, from the agricultural processes that we are undertaking, it will definitely lead to severe and potentially catastrophic changes in our climate. And mind you, a lot of these climate changes are going to be irreversible. So, in a nutshell, what does development require? Development requires increased use of resources. Yes or no? So when we are developing, how do we develop? If we have to set up schools, if we have to, set up infrastructure, if we have to develop our economy, the bottom line is that you need more and more number of resources. However, at the same time, what does development lead to? We are using the resources, but what are we leading to? We are leading to an increased amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, can anyone tell me what is the meaning of greenhouse gases? Anyone? I'm sure this is a very buzzing topic. You must have heard a lot about greenhouse gases. So, can anyone just take a wild guess what is a greenhouse gas?
Well, ma'am, greenhouse gas is those gases they are increasing the global warming.
Absolutely. So, if I just tell you briefly how the climatic system works for the planet, so we have our planet. Suppose this is our planet, and we have the sun rays. Can you see me? Can you see my video?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Yeah. Okay. So suppose this is our planet and this is the sun. So if sun rays are coming, the Earth's atmosphere is such that it absorbs some of the radiation which are coming from the sun. Now, some of it is required to maintain an optimum temperature on the Earth, because agar wo nahi hoga, then the very existence of life on Earth will not be possible. But when it goes beyond a certain level, that means the warming of the Earth's surface is increasing. Now, why is that happening? That is because we have increased greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere, which are absorbing more and more of these sun radiations. Okay, so greenhouse gas हम उसको इसलिए बोलते हैं because it works on the phenomenon of greenhouse. जैसे कि बहुत cold climates में क्या करते हैं वो they create a glass structure which acts as a greenhouse, and when sun rays enter that particular structure, it absorbs it sorts of traps the heat, and it creates a conducive environment for plants to grow there. So similar phenomenon is there when we talk of the greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. So development is leading to an increased level of greenhouse gases, and more the greenhouse gases, more the global warming. And when we say higher levels of greenhouse gases, we definitely are talking of negative impacts of these greenhouse gases. So we have impacts on our agriculture. We have droughts, we have famines. So the impact on agriculture is very negative. Then we have very negative impacts on the weather conditions. You must have seen that there are extremes of events happening. At some places there are droughts. At other places flooding is happening. We are experiencing more severe summers, more severe winters than we had ever witnessed before. And all of these are the results of greenhouse gases. Then we have impacts on the melting of glaciers. The glaciers are melting. They are leading to increase in the sea levels. We have a number of diseases which are linked to greenhouse gases because they are increasing the temperature. It has impact on your forest, on your wildlife, on the marine life, on different regions of the country. So the impacts of greenhouse gases or impacts of global warming is not limited to one area. It has an overarching impact. You just talk of the area and you'll see the negative impacts on greenhouse gases. So what is the way out? See, we cannot stop developing. Do you think we are in a condition that we will stop developing? Especially if we are talking of countries like India, which are in a state of development. We are still not fully developed nations. We are considered a developing economy. So do you think we should stop developing? That's the way out? Do you agree to that?
No.
Definitely not. We cannot stop developing. And this has been a topic of debate internationally for so long. See, developed countries when they were developing, they used n number of resources. Now when they have developed, now when this issue of environment is rising, what they do is they tell the developing countries that, see, you need to stop developing, you need to stop using these resources because the environment is degrading. But that's not the way out. We cannot at any cost stop developing. And this is also called the development dilemma. So what is the consistent, effective, and equitable way to meet this challenge? The only way is through the framework of sustainable development. So we develop, but at the same time, we develop sustainably. Now here comes the question, what is sustainability? So it's a normal English term, right? Sustainable. You must have heard this word sustainable or sustainability. So when we call something sustainable, it means something which is able to maintain its state, right? So it's a process or state that can be indefinitely maintained. Now, this concept of sustainability was first, recognized in early 1970s at the United Nations Conference on Human Environment. And, this was the first time where sustainability got its formal definition. And by, the 1990s, the European architects, the American architects, they started adopting this concept too. So sustainability is nothing but living, working, and behaving in a way that will sustain our biodiversity. It will not degrade it any further, right? So when I talk of the first definition, it was, as I said, it was given by the United Nations. And there was this report by the name of Our Common Future. And it was given by the Brundtland Commission. So that report is also called Brundtland Report. And it was released in the year 1987. Now, according to this report, sustainable development was formally defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, this is very, very important to understand that when we are developing, we have to develop in such a way that even though we are, currently using resources, but it is not that we are developing at such a pace that we leave no resources for our future generations. Okay, so we have to develop at such a pace. We have to use the resources in such a manner that we are also leaving the resources for our future generations. So what does sustainability do? It basically improves the quality of human life. It develops and protects the natural environment, and it provides fair and equal economic opportunities for all the people and not just the privileged few. Now, when we talk of the components of sustainability, so there are basically 3 components of sustainability. So when we are saying sustainable development, we basically focus on 3 things, which are environment, social, and economic components. So these are the 3 components of sustainability. They are also called as, the 3 pillars of sustainability, or you can also call it the triple bottom line of sustainability. So there are a number of terms which have been interchangeably used, but the bottom line is that there are three components which we need to take care of when we talk about sustainability. So they are social components, economic components, and environmental components. So first of all, what is social sustainability? Now, social sustainability is nothing but when you are able to sustain your society. When everyone in your society is living in harmony, there is social well-being, there are no wars, there is no poverty, there is good education rate. All that is nothing but social sustainability. Your society is sustainably growing. The second component, which is environmental sustainability. See, a lot of times it's a myth that people understand sustainable development only in the context of environment, but that is not true. Sustainable development, whenever we talk of sustainable development, we have to focus on all the three components equally: the environmental component, the social component, and the economic component. Having said that, environmental component is one of the biggest concerns when we talk of the global environment, right? Because when we are working for the society, when we are working for the economy, we are in a way degrading our environment. And the third pillar is the economic sustainability. So economic sustainability is basically when we are able to sustain our economy at a particular level. And this has become more important since the global recession that happened in the year 2008. Okay, so economic sustainability has gained much more importance since then. So these are the objectives of sustainable development. Now, when we talk of objectives of sustainable development, it encompasses all the three components. So it has objectives for social aspect, it has objectives for environmental aspect, as well as for the economic aspects. So we say that we need to maintain the standards of living of people. We have to conserve and protect the natural resources of the earth. We need to innovate new technologies. We have to respect the local and indigenous communities. Why? Because they are the best judges of how to use the resources which are present in their immediate environment. And we also must seek peaceful coexistence of all the nations, so that we are looking at the larger interests of the humanity at large. Okay, so what are the parameters of sustainable development? How do we actually achieve it? So, to achieve sustainable development, we have to take care of certain parameters. One is the carrying capacity. Now, can anyone tell me what is carrying capacity?
Capacity is the capacity who's carrying some loads.
Absolutely. So carrying capacity is how much can one bear, how much load can one take. And here we are talking of carrying capacity of our earth, of our mother nature. So how much can it take? We are producing so much waste, we are releasing so much of greenhouse gases that we are actually going beyond the carrying capacity of our earth. So we have to work within the carrying capacity of our only planet. Then we have to have intergenerational equity, which means that jitne resources hamare paas hain, we need to give the same amount of resources to our future generations. So there is equity between generations. Third is intra-generational equity. Now, intra is within generation. I'll give you one example here. Suppose you have an intra-college competition and you have an inter-college competition. So what happens in intra and what happens in inter? Inter mein, you compete with other colleges. In intra-college competitions, you compete with students of your own college, right? Similarly, intergeneration is between two generations and intra-generational is within the same generation. So if we are talking of the current generation, even in the current generation, we have to have equity. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए that the developed nations, they are enjoying all the resources, they are releasing so much of waste. That should not happen. Everyone present in today's generation should have equal access to resources. That's called intergenerational. Then very important is we need to have gender equality. Now, you'll be surprised to know that a lot of movements that have happened over the years, historically, especially when we talk of sustainable development, women have had a larger role to play in all those movements. I'll give you one example here. So, you must have heard of the Chipko movement. So what happened was in the early 1970s in Uttarakhand, uh, then it was definitely a part of Uttar Pradesh. So, along the foothills of Himalaya, near the Alaknanda River, what happened was the government gave away the forest land to private developers. Now, those forest lands were the bread and butter of the villages, the villagers that were residing near that area. So, what happened? So there was this woman by the name of Gora Devi. She, along with other women of her village, they went to these forests and they hugged the trees. So they hugged the trees so that the private developers who had bought that land, they could not cut those trees for their development. And since they hugged the tree, that's where this name came from. Chipko matlab, to stick to something, chipak jana. So that is how this name emerged. So Chipko movement has a very significant history in the milestones of sustainable development. And Mr. Sundar Lal Bahuguna, he has also been linked to this movement. So gender equality is important. Then also diversity needs to be taken care of. See, we cannot have one rule for everyone. अगर आप इंडिया में ही देखेंगे, so India itself is such a country which has such a diversity, right? Be it geographical diversity, be it the diversity of cultures, of religion. So we cannot have one rule for everyone, but yet the goal has to be same, that we need to be sustainable. So, we have a number of challenges when we talk of sustainable development. We have hunger reduction, we have to have education, we have to have proper health infrastructure, employment, disaster risk. All these are challenges of sustainable development. And to meet these challenges, in the year 2015, the United Nations, they came up with sustainable development goals. And these goals basically call for a universal action to end poverty, to protect the planet, and to ensure that all the people enjoy peace. And the aim is to achieve all these goals by 2030. So there are basically 17 sustainable development goals which deal with the different aspects of sustainable development. So there are some goals related to environment, some are related to society, some are related to economy, so on and so forth. Like there is no poverty, zero hunger, climate action, partnership for the goals, gender equality. So all these are the sustainable development goals that the United Nations has come up with. Now, a very important component when we talk of development is energy. What is energy? Can anyone tell me what is energy? क्या होता है energy? Yeah, what is energy? What is energy?
Strength to do something.
Absolutely. To do anything you need energy. आपको खाना खाना है, you need energy. आपको चलना है, you need energy. आप अभी जो ये webinar attend कर रहे हैं, your mobile phone or on your laptop, to run that equipment you need energy. So basically, energy is the bottom line for the very survival of life, be it animals or humans. And that is why energy is a very important component of development, because without energy, you cannot develop. So we say that energy is inevitable for human life. You cannot sustain without energy, right? And, with the growing population, with the growing economy, we are putting immense pressure on the resources that we have. So if we have to ensure that we have access to these to energy in the future also, we need to have such energy sources which are affordable, which are accessible, and which are environment friendly. Now, if we look at the energy mix of India, the current energy mix of India, you'll be surprised to see that coal still predominates the energy mix. We are, still uh, uh, taking 59% of our energy requirements from coal. Now, coal, as we all know, is a fossil fuel. The more coal you burn, the more greenhouse gases you will emit. As simple as that. So what are the issues with these non-renewable resources? ठीक है, जो हमारे fossil fuels हैं, जैसे coal है, what are the issues with them? Number one, they are finite. If you keep using them at the same pace that you are using currently, you are definitely going to run out of them. Secondly, you are releasing greenhouse gases. And thirdly, you have to heavily rely on imports because every country is not so rich in these reserves. So you have to import these resources.
Please, ma'am,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, definitely. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, how to procedure energy saving? If माना
Yeah.
जो हर हर एक आम और खास पीपल के रेंज में है वो प्रोसीजर क्या है जो हम एनर्जी सेव कर सकें?
So one of the solutions to these growing energy challenges is the usage of renewable energy. Now we all know what is a renewable energy, right? They are abundant. They are, in the human time frame, we can say they are inexhaustible. They are infinite, and they are environment friendly. So suppose we talk of solar energy, we talk of wind energy, we talk of hydropower. All these are the forms of renewable energy, renewable sources of energy. And it's very alarming to see that India is the third largest country worldwide when it comes to renewable energy production. However, there is still a lot of gap. We have a potential of about 900 gigawatts, and this is as per the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy data. So we have a potential of about 900 gigawatts, but still we have only achieved less than 100 gigawatts of renewable energy. So you can just see the scope that we have to invest in renewable energy sector. Now, within renewable energy also, I would say the most important source of renewable energy for India is solar energy. Why? Because we have a solar energy potential of about 750 gigawatts. And currently we have only achieved 40 gigawatts of the installed capacity through solar. Now, government has been, taking a number of initiatives in terms of solar energy. And if you are aware of the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, which came in the year 2010, and then later on it was revised. So as per that mission, we have, a target of achieving 100 gigawatts of solar energy by the year 2022, and a total of 175 gigawatts by all the sources of renewable energy. And, they are further, till 2030, they have a plan of going beyond 500 gigawatts. So when I say solar energy, India is, because of its geographical location, we are so fortunate that we are, located between the Tropic of Cancer and the equator, which gives us an annual average temperature of 25 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is very, very, conducive for solar energy when we talk of solar energy harnessing. And most parts of India, we have more than 300 days in a year, which are sunny days. And if we, harness those days, if we harness solar energy that we are getting from that, we will be able to generate more than what is required in the entire nation throughout the year. So you can imagine the potential that solar energy possesses. And within solar energy also, so solar energy can be used in two ways. One is you connect it to the grid. Second is you use it in an off-grid manner. Now, off-grid is a decentralized manner. Suppose today I decide to have a solar water heater on my rooftop. So that's an off-grid application. Or suppose I plan to have a solar panel on my rooftop to generate electricity which is enough for my house. So what I'm doing is I'm not connecting it to the grid, but I'm using it in an off-grid manner. I'm generating power for myself. So that is a very important advantage of solar energy, that it can be used in an off-grid manner, decentralized manner. And this advantage of solar energy has been tapped by the government at large, especially to electrify the rural sector in India. I'll share one example, a personal anecdote, something which I personally witnessed. So I happened to visit these villages in Chhattisgarh, and they are the tribal villages which under the government's mandate are not entitled to have grid connected power. So the only solace they were having was solar energy. So in each of these villages, what government had done was they had installed these central level solar power plants which were feeding electricity to the individual households in all those villages. So this is how important solar energy is, and especially for a country like India. There's another aspect that I want to touch upon. Other than energy, the building sector. I think the built environment sector is very closely related to sustainability. Excuse me. Now, if we just look at the data, if we just talk of Asia, so the building sector is consuming about 1/4 of the electricity that is consumed in the entire Asia. And the share of buildings in Asia to the world is about 3.7 to 7.3%. And it is just expected to increase by the year 2030. And, you'll be shocked to know that almost 70% of the buildings are yet to be built. So in 2030, the number of buildings that we are going to witness globally, 70% of them are still not there. So just imagine the kind of emissions, the kind of resources that we will be requiring. So what is the solution? The solution is green buildings. Now, have you ever heard of this term green buildings? Anyone? What are they? Something which is green in color?
Ma'am, the buildings which have made from materials like who are good in naturally good and like fiber or these things like wood or natural material.
So Vandana, you're very right. So let's just try to understand the terms separately. Green is anything related to environment, something which is environment friendly, right? And buildings is the built environment, the structure. So green buildings is nothing but buildings which are environment friendly, right? So why build green? Why do we need buildings which are green? Now, this is the data which has been given by, the United States Energy Administration. So according to them, when we see the emissions of carbon dioxide at a global level, the building sector tops the list. So building sector is emitting the maximum amount of carbon dioxide, which is followed by transportation and industry. So that is why we need to build green. Looking at the impacts of buildings, so 70%, 71% of total electricity is consumed by buildings, 39% of total CO2 is emitted by buildings, the raw materials that we are consuming. So, globally in all the industries, whatever raw materials we are consuming, 30% of them is being utilized in buildings. And we are generating so much of waste. So what are green buildings? What are the advantages? Number one, it promotes energy efficiency. So minimum harm on the environment. Maximum use of natural resources. So less usage of energy, lesser usage of water, lesser usage of natural resources, lesser generation of waste. And not just that, it is also a healthier built environment for people who are residing inside the building. So if you ever happen to visit a green building, you will actually feel that the air is so much fresh. The environment is so much healthier for people. Why? Because we are maintaining all the components of a green building. So there are a number of green features. So here I would actually like to emphasize that there is no one definition of a green building. ऐसे नहीं है कि अगर आपने सोलर पैनल लगा दिया तो आपकी बिल्डिंग ग्रीन हो गई. अगर आपने रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग सिस्टम लगा लिया तो आपकी बिल्डिंग ग्रीन हो गई. No, it's not like that. It's a combination. It's an amalgamation of different elements of different practices that makes the building green. So a green building may have energy efficiency features, like you have LED lights, you can have solar energy utilization, you have water conservation features. So there can be n number of water conservation features, like you can have dual flush toilets, you can have rainwater harvesting system, you can have wastewater recycling. So the sky is the limit. You have better ventilation for better indoor air quality. You have lesser waste generation when you are constructing the building. You have on-site wastewater treatment. So these are some of the features which a green building possesses. And here I would like to bring your attention to a conceptual drawing of a green building, how a green building looks. So you can see there are a number of features which have been incorporated in this building. So suppose on the top we have terrace garden, we have photovoltaic which are generating electricity, we have automated control system, we have more efficient lighting systems, right? We have rainwater system, a rainwater harvesting system. So all these components, when they combine, they make a building green. So there are basically 5 aspects of a green building. So you have to take care of the site where you are developing the building. It should not be a agricultural land. Okay, you have to take care of the water management. How are you going to manage your water? Rainwater harvesting कर सकते हैं. You can go in for sewage treatment. Third very important component is energy. You have to take care of energy. You have to take care of the materials. So you can use more and more of the recycled material when you're using when you're making the building. And very important component is the indoor environmental quality, because as I said, a green building is such a building which is healthier for people who are living inside. So indoor environmental quality is a very important feature of a green building. Now these are some of the please go ahead. Please identify yourself.
I am Engineer Kaisar Jamal, and this is, Madam, very innovative, very productive, and very useful, burning topic you are addressing. I have a little bit have to ask a query about this green building. Can you tell me that this design actually follow the RCC framing? I mean to say that the design procedure we follow in the normal RCC building, isn't that follow in this green building as well?
Very good question, Engineer Jamal. You can definitely use the normal RCC structure. There is no harm in doing that. But the point here is that how are you going to make that building greener from a conventional building? So suppose instead of the normal bricks that you use, you can go in for fly ash bricks. You know what's fly ash? So fly ash is the waste residual ash that is left behind when you burn coal in a thermal power plant. And it has been tested, and it has come up as an excellent building material. So instead of the regular bricks, you can use those fly ash bins. So you have to actually see how you can make the building greener. What are the alternative ways which you can incorporate? The design structure can definitely be the same, But what are the innovative features that you can bring in? That is, where you have to sort of experiment. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes. You say that, okay, it's followed.
Yeah, thank you. So these are the benefits of a green building. We, if we make a building green, we are able to reduce the usage of energy. Um, we are able to reduce CO2 emissions, water use, and solid waste. Now, if we look at the scenario of green buildings in India particularly, so, we started approximately 1000 years ago. And so I would say that India historically has been very sustainable in all its approaches. So we have been very sustainable in the way we design our buildings. Suppose if you go to old palaces, you will see those jali structures. We used to have those courtyards in the center. So they are nothing but green structures. You did not need any artificial air conditioner to have fresh air, because the building was created in such a manner that you had natural cross ventilation. So, Indians in their approach have been really sustainable, I would say. But, this concept started getting lost somewhere in the earlier 1920s. Lately, the concept has again started gaining momentum. And, so this entire green building sector has come up in a big way. Green building rating systems are something which, sort of certifies a building to be green. Now, I have a question for you. What is this? Can someone tell me what this is? What can you see on the screen?
This is a chart that's giving the composition of nutrition that may be found in different foods like
Absolutely.
salt, calcium, sodium, and this is like in percentages increasing from top and then decreasing downward. So vitamin A,
Absolutely.
calcium, so this is,
Yeah, so this is nothing but a nutritional label, right? Now, again, what is this?
I think this is sort of certification,
Certification mark.
international
Absolutely.
standard. Yes.
This is ISI certification mark. So what does ISI do? So when you look at a product and you find ISI mark or FPO mark or FSSAI mark for that matter, you're assured that the product is safe to use. You know that it meets certain standards of quality and safety, right? Similarly, when we talk of green building rating systems, they are nothing but a standardization mark for buildings which are green. So if a building has that standardization mark or that green building certification mark, then you know that yes, this building meets certain standards of greenness, right? ऐसा नहीं है कि उसने सिर्फ सोलर पैनल लगा लिया और बोल रहे हैं कि मैं ग्रीन बिल्डर हूँ, मैं ग्रीन बिल्डर हूँ. So here is also an issue of greenwashing. Sometimes what happens is, suppose I just use one nail in my table which is made of recycled material, and I just go out telling people, see, I have made a green building, I have made a green building. So that is the issue which is there. So how to solve that issue? For that, we have these green building rating systems in place. So these green building rating systems, they have certain points. They give you some pointers to work upon, and when you fulfill those requirements, then they certify you as a green building. Okay, this is one example of a green building rating system. This is the LEED green building rating system, which is given by US Green Building Council, and this is followed throughout the world. We have a number of US LEED rated buildings in India and in a number of different countries. So what LEED does is it gives rating systems for different types of buildings. So it has a different system for homes, for commercial buildings, for new constructions, for existing buildings, so on and so forth. And so based on how many points of that structure you are able to meet. So suppose LEED tells you that you have to meet these 100 points. Now, within those 100 points also, there are some limits. So it will say, suppose, okay, if you meet 40 points, then you are called a LEED certified building. If you are able to meet 50 points, then you are a silver certified building. If you go a little beyond, you're a gold certified. And the highest level of certification that LEED gives is the LEED Platinum building. Okay, so these are based on the points that you're able to achieve. Now, when we talk of the national rating system of India, we have this rating system called GRIHA, which stands for Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment. And this was jointly developed by, TERI, which is the Energy and Resources Institute, and it was developed in collaboration with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Now, GRIHA is basically our own national rating system, and it takes care of the Indian climatic zones. So it is more suitable for the buildings which are which have been built in India. Now, LEED follows the silver, gold, and platinum system. GRIHA follows a star rating system. So suppose you achieve 50 to 60 points, then you are 1-star rated building. If you are achieving 91 to 100 points, you are a 5-star rated building. So the maximum rating that it gives is a 5-star rating. Now, these are some of the examples of green buildings in India. This is CII building in Hyderabad. And this was the first LEED Platinum rated building outside of the US. This is Suzlon, situated in Pune. This is also a LEED Platinum rated building. This is IIT Kanpur. So IIT Kanpur, what they did was, one of their wings, one of their blocks was certified under GRIHA. So this is a GRIHA 5-star rated building. Then this is Infosys again in Hyderabad. This is also a GRIHA 5-star rated building. So, these are some of the examples of the green buildings which are there in India.
Here is Mudassir Ali from Pakistan.
Hello, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can we convert our old buildings into green building?
Absolutely, yes. So under LEED system, we have a rating system for existing buildings also. So they give you the ways and methods and techniques by which you can make your existing building green. Now, this is a very important question. Good you ask, sir, because a lot of, the majority of the stock of the buildings is already there. So how do we make them green is a very pertinent question. And LEED has actually addressed that question. If you go in to the LEED EB rating system, which you can easily find on the USGBC website, it has certain parameters which tells you how you can make your existing building green. Suppose you can have a solar power plant on your building. You can, so basically when we are talking of an existing building, the main consumption of energy is happening in the daily operations and maintenance. So how you can make that green, all of that is listed in that rating system, sir.
मैडम, आपने जो पॉइंट सिस्टम के बारे में बताया, वो पॉइंट सिस्टम कैसे होता है, फिर से एक बार बताएंगे?
Okay, so पॉइंट सिस्टम बेसिकली ऐसे होता है कि जैसे मैं आपको एक बहुत रिलेटेबल एग्जांपल देती हूँ. आप एग्जाम में अपीयर होते हैं, 100 मार्क्स का पेपर है, तो वो बोलते हैं अगर आपने 30 मार्क्स ले आए तो आप पास हो जाएंगे. आप 60 मार्क्स ले आए तो आपको फर्स्ट डिवीजन मिल जाएगी. आप 75 मार्क्स ले आए तो आपको डिस्टिंक्शन मिलेगी. सिमिलरली जो ये ग्रीन बिल्डिंग रेटिंग सिस्टम्स होते हैं, इनके कुछ पॉइंट्स होते हैं, ठीक है. जैसे आपको रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग सिस्टम लगाना है, आपको सोलर एनर्जी यूज करनी है, आपको वेस्ट वाटर ट्रीटमेंट करना है, ऐसे करके उनकी कुछ लिस्टिंग होती है चीजों की. अब उसमें से अगर आपने सपोज 50 चीजें कर ली तो आपको 1 पॉइंट मिल गया. 60 चीजें कर ली तो आपको 2 पॉइंट्स मिल गए. सो उस बेसिस पे वो आपको फिर रेटिंग देते हैं. इज दैट क्लियर नाउ?
ओके मैम, थैंक यू.
So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and there is one activity. I'm not sure. I mean, I do not want you to do it right now, but this is something I find very interesting. So, you as an individual, because see, environment is not the responsibility of any one person. It is the responsibility of all of us. It is the planet which belongs to all of us. So we have to start from ourselves. Green buildings ban jayengi, renewable sources of energy use ho jayenge. But unless we start from ourselves, I don't think we can go there. So these are some of the web links which help you calculate your own carbon footprint. So when you go on these websites, they'll ask you some questions, and when you fill those questions, it will tell you how much is your carbon footprint. And when you know that, I think you will understand that yes, we do need to change. So, can anyone tell me what is this? What do you see on the screen?
The picture of art.
Absolutely. So this is our home through history. And what is this?
I don't know, but it's like a heating phenomena, like that green. Sorry.
Earthquakes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So this is our home in the future if we do not take action now, right? So that is how alarming the situation is. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much. This is my email ID. In case you have any any questions or comments, you can definitely get in touch with me. Yeah, I'll just answer Mr. Jamal first. Mr. Jamal, there are a number of books, and specifically, if you want to understand more on green buildings and the green building rating systems, I would suggest you please go on to these websites of US Green Building Council, number one. Number two, you can go on to the website of the Indian Green Building Council.
Here is Mudassir Ali.
Ji, Mr. Ali.
Ma'am, I have a question. Means how can it be expensive from a local building, a green building?
Yeah, that's a recurring question, and good you asked. A lot of people say that green buildings are costlier. Okay, so initially, yes, it might cost you a little bit more than the conventional building because you are, getting all these technologies in place. Initially, yes, I would say a little bit incremental cost might be there. But the eventual savings in cost that you are doing is immense. So suppose at present, I'm just taking a hypothetical number. At present, you are paying 100 rupees as electricity bill per month. Once you make your building green and you have this solar system in place, you might not be spending anything on energy. So the payback period is actually very quick. You will be able to recover that extra cost very quickly, and after that you are only saving. I hope that suffices, Mr. Ali.
Many countries are following this, means green building concept.
Every country, sir. Every country, right from the US to India to Australia to Canada to all the developing countries, you will find green building in every country. You please go on to the website of the US Green Building Council. They have a directory wherein they have a list of Mr. Jamal, I request you to please switch off your mic. I think this buzzing sound is coming from your mic. Thank you so much. Thanks. So if you just go on to their site, they have this entire directory which gives you a list of the buildings which have been rated green by USGBC, LEED. So every country is following, sir. So a lot of countries have their own national standards also. But this one standard, which is USGBC LEED system, this is applicable throughout the world. Any country, any building in any country can go on for this system. Yeah. See, so this problem of awareness is very much there, sir. Whenever you're trying to bring any new technology in the market, you will always, witness this resistance from the clients, from the community, from the people. So, this problem of awareness has always been there, but the solution is capacity building. right? You need to create more awareness. You need to reach out to the grassroots, and you need to convey these benefits of green buildings, because see, people only understand the language of money. I'm so sorry to say that. It is true. It's a global truth. Everyone understands the value of money only, the language of money. So हमें पैसे में क्या मिलेगा, हमें क्या फायदा है? So when you try to explain them that the payback period is very quick, once you recover the extra amount that you spend, you will only be saving. आज अगर आप 100 रुपए खर्च कर रहे हैं अपनी बिजली पे, so 5 साल बाद आपको एक भी रुपया खर्च नहीं करना पड़ेगा. That is how I think you need to convince people in terms of money, in terms of environment, in terms of their own well-being. And unless we build these capacities, I think it will be very difficult to actually reach those markets. I'm sure, I truly agree with you, Mr. Jamal, that we are facing a lot of resistance from the communities, and the only solution is building capacities by generating awareness and reaching out to people. Because government at their part is also doing a lot of things. They are taking a lot of initiatives. So, unless those initiatives reach the people, reach the grassroots, they have no meaning. So we have to take them to people. That's how we can solve this issue. How can you earn from a green building? Is that what is your question?
Yeah.
So when you are saying earn, what do you mean by earn? As the owner of the building, you are saying?
I mean, how can we earn money, or how can we do our business from through the green building?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. There is this budding industry of green buildings. You can be a consultant, you can be a contractor, you can go into green building material supply. So the entire supply chain offers you opportunities for earning money from green building. So it's a huge lucrative sector, sir. Definitely, yes. You can go into consultancy, you can go into supply chain, you can go into the construction side. So the sky is the limit. Definitely, yes, a very lucrative market, sir. Yeah, definitely. If you have any more questions, you can take my email ID from the organizers, and you can write to me. I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you so much. It was really a great session. Over to you, Amitesh and Suhani.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you everyone for joining. We look forward to organizing many more webinars as such. Do follow us on our social media to get updates about it. Okay, lastly, I would like to present my thanks to Ma'am Meenal Jain for such informative session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. And very nice questions, very engaging session. Thank you so much for being such a sport. And thanks for being such a lovely audience. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. I'll take your leave.